It's quite unsettling to think that you could potentially be a murder victim if you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. But what if I told you that your own friends could be the murderers? Sure, it's unlikely, but it's not impossible. Cassie Jo Stoddart was a 16-year-old student attending Pocatello High School in Idaho when she became the victim of a tragic ending. To give you the full perspective of the story, I'm going to give you the background of everyone who is involved in this case. Tori Adamczyk was born on the 14th of June 1990, and Brian Draper, who was born on the 21st of March 1990, were two individuals who had gone to Pocatello High School with Cassie for their sophomore year in 2006 and would later become the murderers in this case. When these two met, Brian said that Tori started talking about how cool it would be to recreate a crime similar to the movie Scream. I'm sure you all know what that movie is about, so I won't go into great detail, but just in case, the movie Scream is about a mysterious killer named Ghostface who tracked down high school students in order to kill them. Tori was inspired by this, but Brian himself was not. Brian Draper enjoyed the idea behind the Columbine massacre and how the killers were in the spotlight. Brian wanted to also be in the spotlight. Since the two boys could not agree on what they wanted, Brian decided that he would go with Tori's Scream plan. Cassie Jo Stoddart herself was born on December 21st, 1989. She lived at her grandparents' house with her brother, Andrew Stoddart, who was only a year and a half younger.
September 22nd to 2006. We're skipping last 4th hour. We're writing our plan right now. I'm telling Cassie's family, but she had to be number one. We have to stick with the plan. And she's perfect, so she's gonna die.
If you are confused about what you just saw, that was Tori and Brian on the day of the murder. They planned this murder beforehand, but the craziest part is that these two individuals have only hung out with each other for 6 weeks prior to this.
I only hung out with him for 6 weeks before this happened. I think it's crazy how the last week of me being on the street, being free, really has affected the rest of my life. If you were to watch that video and nothing had happened, it would literally be a joke.
Now let me take you back to the morning of the night it all happened. Brian was walking around school looking for Tori as they were supposed to meet up at 7:30 a.m. in order to plan the murder. But he ran into Cassie, the victim, and joked about the meeting they had planned to murder her in.
I was really actually gonna do it. Oh, yeah? I was like, I went to brush his hair.
Hey, look, it's Cassie.
Hey, look, I don't know.
Hello, Cassie. I'm getting you on tape, okay? Say hi, please. Hi. Okay, see ya. Wait, have you seen Tori? He's supposed to meet me here at 7:30, and it's 8:19. He's an hour late. You don't even care, do you? Okay.
Cassie was going to leave school that day to go and take care of her uncle and aunt's pets at their home. She didn't want to do this alone, so she invited her boyfriend to come along, while he invited Tori and Brian as well, so they could all watch a movie together. Cassie didn't actually want Tori and Brian to come. It's kind of crazy how you should always trust your gut feeling. Tori and Brian both knew that this was their opportunity to remake their version of the Scream, so they went to the house in order to go through with their plan. While they were about to watch the movie, Tori and Brian told Cassie and her boyfriend that they were gonna go to the cinema instead, which means leaving Cassie and her boyfriend all alone. But before they left, they unlocked the back door of the house in order to access it later in the night without anyone realizing. They drove off and waited until the night and snuck back into the basement and decided to cut the lights out on Cassie and her boyfriend. They did this because they wanted Cassie to come down to the basement so they can murder her. Brian and Tori would want to lead the boyfriend to the front of the house and murder him so they can get back inside and do the same to Cassie, but none of these plans worked. And due to the lights being cut off and some noises being heard in the basement, Cassie and her boyfriend were a bit worried. Her boyfriend called his parents in order to ask for permission to stay the night with Cassie, as he didn't want her to be alone. But his parents declined and soon picked him up from Cassie's uncle's house. As her boyfriend was leaving, he called Tori and Brian to inform them that he was leaving, which actually made the plan easier. Afterwards, they wore black clothes with white masks and made their way up to the stairs, and this is where their plan came into motion. They stabbed Cassie about 29 times before they left the house. They then recorded the following footage moments after murdering her.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like it wasn't real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
It makes me extremely uncomfortable seeing that this is their first reaction to murdering someone. They're filled with adrenaline and do not feel as if they made any mistakes. Another thing that freaks me out is this footage taken just before the murder.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah.
These guys got horny just thinking about murdering her. I can't begin to imagine how insane this is. The family that owns the house have returned back home, and upon entering the house, their 13-year-old daughter found Cassie's body lifeless on the floor, which is what started the investigation. A few days later, the two boys who committed the murder have been caught and were put on trial. This eventually led to both individuals receiving life sentences without the possibility of parole in 2007. Both individuals were blaming each other for the murder instead of admitting it, even after being caught and proven to be guilty, which is unreal.
I tried all these different identities, and I couldn't, find an identity that I could not be pushed out of, I guess. So I got into Columbine. I saw at the time they transcended their high school. For the hour that they did what they did, they were in the spotlight, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be in the spotlight.
After many years of being in prison, Brian opens up about what he felt and what he wanted to accomplish: to be a known killer just like the shooters in the Columbine massacre. Let's take a look at Tori and notice how different his responses are.
I remember the first article I read about my case. Geez, I mean, they made me sound like this brutal, cold, psychopathic killer.
I'm sorry, but that's because you are.
Talking about Brian, they were making you just like Brian.
They put us like as the same person.
You are.
They lumped them together.
As you can see, he's still not accepting the fact that he actually did what he did. He keeps shifting the blame to Brian. It's unbelievable. Like, you've been in prison for years and you still think you didn't commit the act, the murder. Anyways, what's worse is the fact that his mom was taking his side and making him to seem like a really good person. Listen to this.
Just a really good kid.
Tori's a good kid, and Tori's just a kind person.
I'm sorry, but how would anyone agree with you?
And we're still a family. He's still every bit as much a part of our family as before.
I understand motherly love is like the strongest type of love you can get, but this is unreal. Her son murdered his classmate with his friend. You have to take action. You have to understand that that's not okay. He's not a kind person. He was not a kind person. I understand you probably thought he was, but he murdered someone. This is not okay. This is not something you could just say, oh, that's, he's always been kind. He's always been good. She said more things here.
Lump them together.
I only hung out with him for 6 weeks before this happened. I think it's crazy how the last week of me being on the street, being free, really has affected the rest of my life.
Because you murdered someone.
If you were to watch that video and nothing had happened, it would literally be a joke.
No, it wouldn't be a joke. You have actually wanted to do this. You have planned it. You have wanted to reenact or recreate the scream. This would not have been a joke if your plan has failed. You have wanted to do it, and you fucked up. And you're a murderer.
I don't know if it was probably my fault, and I should have seen it, but he did not seem capable of something like this, and it completely caught me off guard.
Over here, he's playing the role that he didn't know it was actually real. He thought that Brian was just joking and, you know, they were going to go just scare her. That's definitely not the case. I don't know why he's pulling this, even after he's been caught and sentenced to life in prison. Might as well just admit that point, but he's still going with this route. May I remind you that this is also the guy that recorded the video saying, "I'm so horny just thinking about it." This guy was horny thinking about murdering her. And after they murdered her, they got back in the car and they were like, "Oh my God, I just killed Cassie. Like, that was so exciting." Or I don't remember what they said, but can you believe that? This guy's still playing that route?
I was just I don't know, I just couldn't believe it.
Yes, you could. You were also very excited.
There should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah.
This video is actually disgusting, and I don't like it one bit. But the next part of this video is continued, except it's under the narration of Brian, so you can't really hear what they say in the video, but I'll try to caption what's going on in the video so you can understand.
I don't know if either of us would have done it if we were alone.
It was pretty hard to get the audio to be a bit clearer, especially with the voiceover, because if I raise the gain, then his voice would absolutely ear rape you. But anyways, you could clearly tell what he's saying. I wonder what her head would look like. And it's unbelievable. These things are things he said before the murder. He was definitely planning on it. He's not a kind person. He is just a really messed up one.
Head off each other, I guess, and it was a formula for disaster in the end, you know.
The time is 9:50, September 22nd, 2006. We know there's lots of doors. There's lots of places to hide. I locked the back doors. It's all locked. Now we just gotta wait.
So as you could see, that they planned this very well, and quite a while before it actually happened. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. Now, a lot of people are saying they were 16. They shouldn't get life in prison, and that's too harsh for a crime for a 16-year-old. But do remember that this girl lost her life. Her family has to live with that for the rest of their lives. That's basically worse than prison. And I do believe that, yes, you're 16 when you murder someone. You're not fully developed in your brain, but you know what? Have you murdered someone at 16? Have I murdered someone at 16? No, of course not, because that shit's wrong. Like, you don't do that. It's just common sense to not take someone's life. These guys are messed up. They need this. They need the prison. I do believe that they should remain in prison. I don't see why they would possibly be set free.
I was actually the individual who snuck downstairs and locked the basement door. And it's that one choice where I was just kind of going along with it. I really didn't stop and say, why am I doing this? I just did it. And that one thing that I did, started this whole thing.
Yeah, you're right. It started it. No, not at all. What started it is you guys planning this for weeks beforehand. You guys still murdered her. Even though you locked the door at the back, you could have stopped yourself at any moment afterwards. You waited and waited. When Matt left, you came in the house. You were waiting in the basement. You could have done anything to stop this, but you didn't.
And that's something that is hard to deal with, because all I had to do was just not do that.
Wrong. All you had to do was not murder her.
And this may have never happened.
Alright, well, that's the end of that. This is the most recent footage that I could find. I can't find anything else to add to this. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope it taught you a bit about what happened in the past, a bit about these two individuals, and I hope you learn from it. Stay safe, and of course, don't always give people the benefit of the doubt. You trust your gut instincts. You never know what could happen, and you don't want to lose your life over something. Cassie did not need to lose her life over this. These two individuals were messed up, and yeah, it's just tragic what happened to her. But I hope you have a great day anyways. Let me know if you want to see any other story covered. I'm happy to do any story that you guys might want. This is my first crime or murder type of video, so I hope it was good. I'm still learning how to put these together. I feel like I've missed a few of the small details that I could have added, but it's my first attempt and I hope to get better at this. Let me know what you think.